Hello and welcome to Give and Take, the virtues in life. And today's topic is Mr. Natural. And so we have a wonderful guest who will introduce himself and tell us all about him being Mr. Natural. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Cecilia.
And your name?
Jean Laguerre.
Okay, I'm so glad that you're here. So we were talking, and I want you to specifically said what you said earlier, because it was very important knowing about, you know what I'm saying.
Well, I feel in life one of the most key things is to understand what is your gift.
Exactly.
We've all been given a God-given gift, and sometimes some of us discover it very early and some of us discover it very late. I was very fortunate to have discovered mine 40 years ago.
Okay.
So,
Well, I'm still discovering. And I like to call them specialities. And so we have been given these unique specialities to serve and to serve people. And so it's nice that you discovered your 40 years ago, but I didn't discover mine until maybe the last 6 years or so ago. And I'm so grateful to be able to share the specialities that I have with others. So tell us about yourself and why you're called Mr. Natural.
well, what you just mentioned about discovering yours 6 years ago, 40 years ago, what I realized was I was very passionate about fitness, about being physically active. I love sports. High school, I wrestled, played handball, football team, and then I discovered bodybuilding. Being a young child who read comic books and looking at superheroes and the physiques and the strength, was just something that was like a fantasy. And then all of a sudden, you get in a weight room and you start working out with weights, and all of a sudden your body starts to transform and you become strong, and it was empowering, and it's like I just kind of fell in love with it. And at that point, I decided that I wanted to try competitive bodybuilding.
Okay.
So what brought on the title Mr. Natural, which is also the name of my company, is that people told me that what I achieved was not possible unless I took drugs. So I firmly disagreed with that, knowing that, I was more than capable of building
Very good.
a championship, competitive physique naturally. Obviously, it would be more challenging, but that was the only way that I would go about doing it. So just to not go too lengthy in it, but within a year and a half, I won my first competition. And by my fourth year, I won 12 championships. And I was in 5 magazines. So my success came very quickly. And within my 9th year, I won 17 championships. And I competed nationally like 2-3 times already. So the success came quick. But at that point, I thought that, bodybuilding was all about me. It was about chasing my goal and my dream. And I came to the realization that God had a greater purpose than that. He wanted me to learn this, but at the same time, the gift was to share it, was to inspire people to know that health was something of great importance. And all that I put myself through to really learn it, now I could share that with others to kind of impact and change their lives so they could see that health and fitness is a way of life. It's not just something that you do temporarily where you take care of your body because there's a party, you're going to turn 30 or 40 or 50 and you're going on vacation, you want to look good. And then after that, you just go back to, neglecting yourself.
Right.
So for me, it's nourishment, taking care of the body. Because as you take care of the body, you take care of the mind, you take care of the spirit, and this is what it was meant to be. When people speak mind, body, and spirit, this is our temple. So once we understand that caring for it is something normal,
Right.
just like people that eat bad, they put bad processed foods in their bodies.
Right.
They eat fast foods all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They become very sedentary. They become overweight. They develop high blood pressure, diabetes, and they just feel very sluggish because the body's not being well taken care of.
Okay.
But once you understand that exercise and sound nutrition is a way of life, I think it gives you an opportunity to develop a sense of clarity and to love yourself, to understand that God's greatest gift to you is your mind and your physical body. And in caring for it, it's just showing honor towards that gift, showing that, you value that gift.
Okay.
So
I want to just touch on, you said about the body. So I have a different, maybe not. So who takes care of the body? So you're saying that body being a temple, and there's a mind and spirit. So in your perspective, who would you say takes care of the body, or what takes care of the body?
Well, to answer that question best, what I say is that there's a certain part that we allow to be in God's hands,
Okay.
and then there's an area that we are accountable for.
Okay.
And what I say all the time is that if a person decides to drink alcohol excessively, or smoke cigarettes excessively, or do drugs excessively, or become sedentary, and have bad nutrition habits, God has nothing to do with that.
Okay, good.
You know what I mean? So there's a certain part that we have to understand that we are accountable for. Being active, exercising, eating right, this is our responsibility. And if we do our part, then we can allow God to do his part. But we must first be accountable to the things that we are responsible for, rather than just say, okay, I'm going to do everything bad, but God is going to, look out for me and keep me even though I'm abusing this body and neglecting it and putting bad things in it. That's not the way it's supposed to be.
So we are responsible for the body. We're responsible for our actions
Correct.
in regards to the body. And we were talking a little before, and I was sharing my perspective on that. And so to me, the soul is the one that takes care of the body. So the spirit is the one that takes care of the soul, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, is the actual entity that takes care of the body. So we have to be responsible, like you said, knowing that God at some point has no part in that. So we're individually responsible for what we do for our body. And so I just wanted to go there. So you talk about God. Are you into some kind of religion or any practice, or you just, what do you do? What do you do?
I'm a Christian by faith.
Okay.
And, for me, spirituality is something, I grew up with it, but obviously when you're a child, you're taken to church whether you want to go or not, so it's not something that you have a say-so, but at some point as you become an adult, you start to become curious and you want to understand more about your faith and God's presence in your life. So now you start taking a lot more initiative. You start reading more. You start learning, what is God's word and how does it impact your life. So for me, I'm married 30 years. I lost my older brother from a drug addiction in, what year was it, 1988. He was 29 years old, so that was 31 years ago. He would have been 30 in August. He passed away in January. And I turned 25 the following month, which was the day after his funeral. And I knew that my life needed to have a sense of more direction than the way it was. So there were things that I was doing that wasn't optimally as sound as I should have been. So the passing of my brother put me in a position where it brought me back to my faith. And I began to pray. And one of the things that I prayed for, I said, God, I said, I've been trying to become the best version of myself without you being in my life, and I've failed miserably. So I said, now, I said, it's your time to help bring me to that place that I need to get to be the best me that I can be.
Excellent.
You know, so at that point I felt like, you know, my spirit, my soul just kind of was uplifted. And I felt like God started just giving me more guidance. And at that point, my faith just kind of grew so much stronger. And I remember, you know, going through relationships, I could never really meet the right person. And I got tired of just dating meaninglessly. So I remember praying, and I said, God, you know, I want you to find me that soulmate, because I'm tired of just having all of these relationships that are meaningless. And 6 months later, I met my wife.
Lovely.
But the crazy part of that story is I met her the 1st of January in 1989, and I married her the 25th of the same month.
Oh, okay. So you said this is it, right?
Well, there was a little pressure in that situation because my wife was living in Canada and she was here visiting for a month. So at the end of the month, she was supposed to go back to Canada. So once we met on New Year's Day and we exchanged numbers and we went on a date, took her to the movies and started talking to each other every day, something about her told me that she was the one that I was praying for. But when she was telling me at the end of the month she was going back to Canada, I said, God, how could you bring me the right woman and at the end of the month she's going to walk out of my life? I said, this doesn't make any sense. So I remember speaking to her, and she told me how she felt, and I knew how I felt about her, and I said, you know what? I said, I don't want you to go back to Canada. I said, I want us to be together. I want you to be my wife. And she said, are you sure? And I said, I'm as sure as I can be under the circumstances. And we went to City Hall. We got married. She got a permanent residency. A year later, we had our first child. And we have 3 sons now that are 29, 27, and 20. And we celebrated our 30th anniversary this past January.
So it does work sometimes, right?
Yeah.
When you really truly know that this is it.
Yeah.
And that's that intuitive feeling, that intuition saying, this is it. This is exactly what I'm looking for.
The biggest question I said to myself was, I said, what do people say if I marry somebody in less than a month? And the voice I heard was, you know, why are you worried about what people are going to think? What do you want? And I said, I feel she's the right one. So it was like, then why are you worried about what people are going to think? And I said, okay, I'm not going to worry about it. And a lot of times, you know, we don't do what we truly desire because we want to put others whose opinions don't really matter, you know, as a concern.
Exactly.
You know, if people are not going to be in agreement with your decision, they have nothing to do with your happiness. So why do you worry about that? Why do you give them power over not doing something that you feel spiritually led to do because you're giving their opinions so much power over you? Yeah. And once I made that decision, I began to realize that, you know, when I decide to do something, I can't worry about people's reactions. If I feel that this is the best decision for me, then,
that's it.
And I prayed about it, and in my prayer that I have like a confirmation, then I can't be concerned about anything else.
That's it. That's it. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Now, Jean, I really want to, because we got some clips, there's a picture of you, and I would like you to talk about this.
Well, that shot is, that's my logo. The N stands for Naturalism. I'm wearing on this T-shirt. And again, it's synonymous with the career, you know, having built a championship physique without drugs, proving that it could be done, and
Right.
inspiring others to know that you could, you know, any goals that you set forth for yourself do not have to be influenced
Right.
by you taking performance enhancement drugs, because now you're polluting the body. You're putting something that's toxic in it, and now you have the image of health, but you're not truly healthy. And to me, that just never made any sense to me.
Right.
You know, any form of a drug that kind of like it camouflages the true essence of what the body can achieve and become. It's like a pollutant in your
Right.
system. So for me, if I'm going to be the picture of good health, then I must be truly healthy. And if I'm doing this in a very holistic, very natural way, and I'm not putting any drugs in my system, then this is what all athletes are supposed to do. You know, every time you hear athletes get caught for taking drugs to improve their performance and their athletic ability, I'm like, why?
Right.
You know what I mean? Why are you cheating and you're doing it in a way that is not conducive to the work ethics that you put forth? You have to bring the body to a point where it can be the best it can be
Right.
in the way that it was meant to be. But if you take a substance that increases your body's athletic ability that otherwise it wouldn't have,
Right.
it's like, to me, you're cheating. You know, it's like...
So you're not being natural, you're being false, right?
Exactly. It's like taking a test and somebody gave you the answers and you're bragging about getting 100. If you didn't really study and earn it, then what are you bragging about? And to me, when it comes to the health and to the fitness and to the athletic performance of the body, if you didn't truly earn that performance yourself and you took a substance that gave it to you, then you didn't really earn it. And it just didn't make sense to me.
Great. So there's another image that we'll see now. Okay. So tell us about that.
That gentleman I met like about maybe 5, 6 years ago when he was only 70. His name is
Only
Jesse.
70?
Well, he's older than that now, but
But he was 70 there?
he was 70 there.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
okay.
an amazing individual for
Wow.
70.
Yeah, look at
And,
him.
you know, we just kind of hit it off, and he trained with me for about a year before he retired from his job and moved to the South. And to me, if a picture can say 1,000 words, that's 1,000 words right there. This man, when he had his birthday, he was the first one on the dance floor, the last one on the dance floor, just full of exuberant energy and so non-traditional for what you expect a 70-year-old to be.
Exactly.
You know, so I told him, I said, he is a true inspiration. And there's others like him, but it's a rarity. I have a gentleman now I'm training who's 73. He could challenge the clients that are 20 and 30 years younger than him. You know, and to me, this is how you want to live life. You don't want to say, oh, when I turn 70, I'll be old and my body won't perform well and I won't be able to do this. Who says?
Right.
Who says you have to be the typical 70-year-old? You don't.
Right.
I have a lady who's 80 who did a plank for over 2.5 minutes. And no one that I'm training can do a plank for 2 minutes. And an 80-year-old did it for 2.5 minutes. You know, so we don't have to fit a mold that says this is what we're supposed to be. We can create our own mold.
Exactly, yeah.
So.
We also have a little small video clip that we can see now too.
Yeah, it's a good workout there. He's a very good trainer. Thank him for everything I've done for him. That's it.
So tell us
That,
about this.
that gentleman there, let me tell you, there's 2 sessions that I've done with him where I was so emotional that I was in tears and he was in tears as well. This man is a plumber. I met him a little over a year ago. He was doing some work for me. My wife and I were getting a new washing machine and we were putting it in a different location.
Okay.
So he came to install the fixtures and then he did a great job. You know, we spoke, he very kind, very warm, very fair, didn't overcharge me or anything. And he was telling me about his retirement plan. He's from Jamaica. He bought some land. He was building a sports bar, and he showed pictures of it. And he was like, Gene, when I retire, I'm going to Jamaica, and this is my plan. And I was like, man, I said, you're not even 50 years old. You got everything planned out. I said, I love it. 2 months later, I contact him because I needed him to do some work, and he tells me he had a stroke. He was in the hospital for 2 months, paralyzed on the whole right side of his body, was in a wheelchair. And I was like in complete shock. So when he got released from the hospital, he was able to move, but not really move well. And physical therapy wasn't really helping him as much as he had hoped for.
Right.
So I told him that I wanted to be there in his corner and help him as much as I could,
Right.
so he could regain his life. So when someone is as young as 50 years old, you know, had their life taken away from them because of something that happened suddenly like that, it's a whole different situation, you know, when this is not just about losing 20 or 30 pounds or lowering your blood pressure. This is a man whose life was taken away,
Right.
you know, by an illness. So I told him my goal is by the end of the year to have him completely mobile and to get him back to work.
Okay.
So we work twice a week for an hour, hour and a half. He's been getting stronger. He's making a lot of improvement. And I've never been more passionately driven to help someone than I am for this man. So.
Very good. So on that note, let's talk about your business and what you offer people. So if you want to share a little bit about that now, that would be great.
Sure. Well, I've had my personal training business almost 30 years now. I'm located in Great Neck, and I also have a studio in Queens, just outside of Valley Stream. And I've worked with athletes, high school, college, professional. I've worked with doctors, nurses, people of all different kind of fields and professions.
Right.
And it's all about being able to inspire and teach people how to take better care of their bodies. You know, so I can work with people on different levels. I also have senior citizens that I work right now. I have at least 4 clients that are over 80. The oldest one is 85 years old.
That seems like that's your niche.
Well, you know, as you get older, keeping your body functioning becomes more and more important to you, because it's something that if you're not on top of it, you start losing your ability to move, to stand. I mean, even my father, when he was 83 years old, he started having a lot of trouble moving about, because when he retired, he became very sedentary, whereas his job was his activity. And once he stopped working, he didn't have a plan to kind of stay active.
Right.
You know, so it started to really kind of get the best of him. You know, so I think as we get older, we have to be even more physically active.
Right.
You know, even if we retired, don't look at retirement as an opportunity to just kind of sit back and do nothing. Look at it like, okay, now I want to just get up and move and still set goals for yourself, still be passionately driven about learning and growing and staying physically fit, because that's when we have a tendency to start losing that very rapidly. You know, so I've also written a book called The Art of the Rep, which is available on Amazon.
Okay.
And the purpose of my book was to really be able to get it out there so people can get some true information on health and fitness, and at the same time be inspired by my journey.
Excellent.
You know, because I'm someone, I started training before internet, before YouTube. I worked out at home for like 9-10 years in a garage with a very simple weight set, and won 17 championships, you know, without anyone coaching me or training me, just really learning and studying and just being passionately driven about achieving my goal. So nowadays, with everything all the technology we have with
Right.
YouTube and the internet. You know, everything is right there for us to learn.
Right.
You know, so I have an Instagram page.
Yeah, I was going to say if you can start talking about your social media
Right.
presence.
It's called Mr. Natural USA, where I post videos and I speak about health and fitness.
Okay.
You know, Naturallyfit, which is on Facebook. And, you know, to me, I just want to be a true inspiration. I mean, at 56 years old, I've been doing this for 40 years now. And I've been a fitness professional and coach for like almost about 30 years. And my oldest son also is a trainer, and he's a national athlete in weightlifting and powerlifting. So fitness has to be a family affair. You know, I train, my wife trains, my other two sons are very active, so it has to be ingrained in the household.
Right. So we're coming down to the end of the show. And so I just want you to say a couple of words about how to stay the course, how if somebody's inspired by what you're saying, somebody will be, what would you suggest to them in a very succinct way in regards to how and why to stay the course?
I think often when people don't stay the course is that they try to do too much. You know, when you exercise, you have to enjoy it. You have to set goals that are realistic for yourself. You have to do things gradually. Don't try to punish yourself to do what someone else can do that you can't do.
Right.
You know, understand that it's your body. You work at your own pace. And as long as you're taking steps to get better, however that pace comes to you, as long as it's coming, is great. You know, and love yourself and love your body and enjoy every moment that you get to do something to improve and to enhance yourself.
Right.
You know, if you can only train 20, 30 minutes twice a week, then do that consistently.
Let it be that, right?
You know what I mean? If someone is more driven to do 3 days or 4 days for an hour, then as long as it's something that you can consistently do, that's the goal.
Yes.
And the days when you feel like you cannot do an hour and you only want to do 20 or 30 minutes, then be okay with that. Don't have guilt over it. You know what I mean? Just read your body and address its needs and understand that some days it's going to go through highs and other days it may go through a low, and it's okay.
All right.
You know, enjoy the journey.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Jean, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your wonderful journey and the great things that you're doing with people. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
And so to the viewers, your level of consciousness is the gateway to the future. Thank you.